feature presentation.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 139 of the Untitled Movie Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Merchant.
Matt, we didn't plan it, but we are coordinated.
boys.
A&P buddies.
A&P. It doesn't really look like we're promoting the movie White Noise.
It just looks
Netflix
like we're big fans
because-
of A&P, which isn't even in Canada anymore. It's now Metro.
I don't even think it's in the U.S. anymore, is it? I think it's like totally gone.
If we have any U.S. listeners or viewers, please let us know.
Yeah, we didn't plan this. I am wearing it to honor my grandpa, R.I.P., who was a manager of an A&P for 40 years. When I tweeted that out, I never know if people take me seriously or not. But
true.
My grandpa was a manager of an A&P. So if you're not watching the video versions, Eric and I are wearing the exact same crew neck sweater that has an A&P logo on it.
It's like we joined a cult.
That Netflix sent us for White Noise. A&P prominently featured in White Noise. So.
Yes.
I spent many of times in an A&P when my grandpa and it was my dad's first job. He worked at GM when I was born, so he didn't work there anymore. But my long history with A&P and the Rohrbeck family. So this is one of the coolest. Like, this is a nice ass sweater, everyone. Like, it's thick. I feel warm and toasty, but not uncomfortable. It's a nice patch. It's got here. I'll turn around for people, and Eric can show the front. Eric, you're not talking though.
No, I know. I was just letting you. I was letting you show that back.
You had to describe it for audio listeners.
Oh, you're right.
Sat in silence. You sat in silence while no one.
That's the best way to go. It just basically has White Noise and some of
like
the pricing and things like that from the even I have the Dialer worry-free gum right here as well. So
it did come with some cool stuff, like a cassette tape of the LCD sound system. Yeah, okay. I was gonna say RVD for some reason, but that's a wrestler.
James Murphy and
how are you, man?
I'm good. It's one of those. We're at that time of year where we've seen a lot because of TIFF already, and it's award season, so we're getting all this kind of cool swag that's kind of there to persuade us to look at this particular movie or specifically dissect it in terms of like, oh, maybe you should vote for this performance or this score or director, et cetera, and so we haven't had a lot of new screenings to go to, and this week is kind of the end of November into December. We haven't really gotten a lot in terms of new screenings because there isn't much left to see other than Avatar: The Way of Water and then Violent Night as well. But Violent Night's one of those movies where it's like it's not maybe a top priority per se, and more so kind of a fun movie night than anything else.
Yeah, it's that weird time of year because we saw so much during TIFF. And then we've seen a bunch of screeners or gone to, award screenings and things like that where, there's only a few left. I mean, I still have a giant list of movies that I need to watch or I'm going to try to watch a bunch of them before our voting deadline, but it's mostly stuff that I missed earlier in the year rather than stuff I need to kind of go to screenings for before that deadline on the 9th. So today I even started to put together my tentative voting because I'm like, I have some time. I'm sitting here. I'm in the mood. I'm going to start to put together what I might vote for. And then if I need to slot in a couple other things or swap things out based on something I see in the next couple weeks, I'll do that. But I'm pretty happy with my votes so far. I don't know
Morbius, right?
Yeah, Morbius, every category, every vote.
And Tar.
And Tar, the two perfect movies of the year.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a fun time of year though. Like even doing it today, like starting to put down my tentative voting, I was like, I love doing this. Like I don't know if it's meaningful at all, or some of the movies I vote for, I go, definitely not making it in, but I gotta try at least. I gotta hope some people will think like I think and put some of these movies in. because you go through and you're like, all right, what are my top movies of the year? What are my favorite performances? And you kind of go through and pick and choose those. Then you go, okay, what is actually in contention? Because we talk about this every year of being like, how do you vote? Do you vote going, well, here's what I think has a chance, so should I support that because this is what the consensus might be? So who do I like the most out of the consensus? Or is there someone on the fringe that I want to vote for to try to get in there? Or do you just vote with your heart and go, these are my favorite performances, movies of the year? And I think it's ultimately a mix of both of those things, at least for me. But that's how I found myself kind of putting my tentative votes through today.
Yeah, there's a strategy there where you look at, like, obviously film Twitter is still in existence as of now, but you kind of look online and you do see, films that people are talking about on a consistent basis, and movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once and Top Gun Maverick have really kind of stuck around for the last 6 months or so. So you know that those movies have resonated in a way that isn't just dealing with recency bias, where a lot of stuff now is coming out and people kind of forget about those films from earlier on. But then also you have, as you mentioned, the you got to stay true to you with the passion votes, where it's like, do you want to vote for something that you truly love with all your heart and know that it probably won't make it into say best picture or directing, but at the same time it does have like something like RRR is a movie that has a lot
It's in
of
there for me. You got to.
yeah, it has so much passion, and it's not there's still a probability of it happening in maybe one of those categories for a best picture in critics groups anyways, or directing, and so with
I
that,
have it in both, baby.
so with that in mind, you put that in there, and sometimes you put that at the top of your list because you feel that maybe there's other people like you that have that same passion, and there will be enough of you if you put it high enough in that ranking for the preferential ballot, that maybe, just maybe, your vote will mean something. And like, even with, for me this year for best actor, it's like Paul Mescal for After Sun does
He's got a
seem,
shot, man. So yeah.
yeah, but then also I've had my heart broken so many times where it's like, Nicolas Cage seemed like, oh, he could actually go all the way to the Oscars, or Ethan Hawke in First Reformed, and Cage for Pig, and like
Ethan Hawke in Glass Onion, best supporting actor.
oh man, that would be amazing. I mean, that he has probably the best line delivery in that movie, but again, you kind of also have
You're
to
good.
you have to be realistic with what you're choosing as well to some degree. You have to, I think it's just tempering your expectations, and you have to know that ultimately, like, the things that you truly love aren't always going to get
Yeah.
nominated, even
Am
with
I going to
critics
vote for
groups.
Chippendale Rescue Rangers? I wanted to, but I go, no one's doing that. No one's doing that. Also, I don't even know if it's eligible because I think it got nominated for an Emmy, but like, it's a movie and it was one of my favorites of the year. So I'm just like, man, I'm not putting that in there, but it's definitely um, something that I feel like came out this year that I wish got a little bit more love. But I guess on the Emmy front, I just don't pay attention. So I guess it is getting a little love. But
Well, like someone like Justin Long for best supporting actor for
yeah,
Barbarian, like that would be an
awesome.
amazing, choice, and a very worthy one. But again, it's a movie that's not, like, even Nope is struggling this year. I feel like, in terms of coming back into the conversation, and that is such a great movie.
I have it in there too.
Yeah.
I that's something that's on the fringe for me. Like, even After Sun, Nope, even Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I feel like those movies, I'm like, okay, Black Panther to an extent, but I feel like it's got a good chance just because of the history and everything there too. But not that you need to get behind the indie darling Black Panther,
Wakanda forever.
But I'm just saying, like, those are like, especially Nope. I'm with you. That is a great movie that I feel like it's still in there, but I feel like that is something that you almost want to put in your kind of top 10 just to try to get it in there, because like there are going to be those things that, like, me personally, like things that have fallen, away from my mind, like the Fablemans and a lot of that kind of stuff that's at, the heavy favorites kind of thing. I'm like, I honestly, there's way more interesting things that I can vote for than that. But then I don't want to just like piss away a vote for just because it's a passion vote for me. So like you kind of have to do that tricky line of going, okay, does this legitimately have a shot? And if there are enough people, like you said, that are passionate about it and they put it in there, it could squeak in and kind of maybe upset one of those other movies. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
like
know
even
what
Mia
else.
Goth for Pearl, like it's a
Yeah.
long shot, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, again, critics groups aren't supposed to necessarily be the Academy Awards. You know, you're voting for the thing that you truly feel is
I
worthy of
agree.
recognition, and then you know you are still having to ride that consensus wave to a certain degree as well, because you look at it strategically when you think like, okay, well, does this actually have a shot, or am I just basically voting, you know, is this just a passion vote basically, you know, or something that maybe will, you know, like another movie that I'm sure is going to do very well because it hasn't been released theatrically as of yet, and it does have a later release, is Sarah Pauli's Women Talking,
Yeah.
which also played the festival circuit and has done really well. And like, I'm not worried about Jessie Buckley or you know, any of the cast, and but I still want to put Sarah Pauli at like number 1 or 2, and I want to put
For
Charlotte
director, yeah.
Wells at number 1 for directing.
I know, yeah.
And it's just like,
I think that's a long shot, but I'm with you on that. Like,
yeah,
you know, not to spoil what I'm voting for, but like it matters.
I mean, we'll talk about it more once we've
yeah,
actually
voted,
submitted
yeah.
our votes and the
But
nominations
I had
come
Sarah
out.
Pauli in there as well, and like, you need the little. I want Top Gun to show up everywhere. Like,
Well, editing, man, I think that movie
yeah.
is so well
Cinematography,
structured.
editing.
Yeah, and like that's a movie where, like, again, like back in January of this year,
Would we have called that?
no, never. Like, even just hoping that it would be a good movie was something that was
Yeah.
kind of like,
No,
oh,
it's
a
this
fantasy.
phenomenon that like it looks like it's a shoe-in in multiple categories.
Well, even the talk of Tom Cruise potentially being one of, like, because
I have him.
that best actor category is pretty weak. So
That's what I mean. When I was going through it, I was like, all right, Daniel Craig's going in there for me. Tom Cruise is going in there for me. Paul Mescal's going in there for me. I even had Diego Calva from Babylon, and Babylon showed up way more than. It's interesting when you do these things. That might be more recency bias, but I really did like that movie. I know we can't technically review it, but we posted social media comments on it. But like, I'm just, it's whenever I do this, it's interesting because I have my best of list on Letterboxd, but then it's always different when you're putting together these kind of things of going, oh, it's interesting what's showing up more often, what lingered longer, what am I thinking about more, what do I want to kind of champion and things like that. So
yeah, and there's stuff as well that it's like it's kind of obvious, and like there is a narrative there to kind of be like, oh, you know, most people seem to be very passionate about. Like, Ke Huy Quan for me is still
absolutely
the number 1 supporting actor slot, and like, just I don't think there's a performance that, even though I love, weirdly, Mark Rylance in Bones
I
and
put
All.
him in there, dude. I put him in there. I had to. I put Ed, would you say Ed Norton's a lead or
no? He's supporting. I would say,
yeah,
like,
right?
because it is an ensemble piece, I would say
it's
that
hard. It's so difficult. Well, Craig would be lead, right? And then everyone else is supporting. Is Janelle Monáe supporting? Yeah.
Yes,
right?
but I mean, there's a lot going on there. But you look at something like, I mean, category fraud is always another thing that's been talked about, especially within the acting categories, because, you know, you have something like The Banshees of Inisherin, right, where like Brendan Gleeson is basically a co-lead. He's not.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, Barry Keoghan is
supporting
there, you know, and Kerry Condon is supporting, where Gleason and Farrell are co-leads. And like, as much as like this is you being this would be me being the contrarian. It's like I would vote because I really like Banshees, and I probably will end up voting for Colin there, but it's almost like I would want to also vote for Colin though, for like After Yang instead, just to be like,
dude, I'm
disrupt
with you
it
for like, or fucking the Batman for supporting. Nominate him 4 times.
There's another guy that I think is actually very much worthy of a supporting nomination. Is John Turturro for the Batman. But nobody's talked about that. I mean, I think the Batman will do well.
That would be a wasted vote. Like, I think Batman will show up in cinematography and
score.
Score, yeah.
But John Turturro
Aquino could
is
get,
still worthy of a supporting nomination in my opinion, but that's one that just never took flight in any way.
materialized. Yeah, no one's really talking about him at all. Like that's the kind of thing where you want to put him in there. That's why like people like Mark Rylance or Ed Norton. I'm like I think even Ed Norton's kind of a long shot, but like I think he's so great in Glass Onion. And yeah, it's been fun kind of putting it together. But you were right about the best actor category this year. That's why like I'm like I don't know. I put Colin Farrell, like after seeing Banshees a second time, like I have no like everyone in that movie is really really good. And I loved Barry Keoghan the second time. So yeah, it's been fun kind of even throwing this together. The best young actor actress category I got to, and I was like, I forget what the parameters of this is, and I don't
the
even,
age
like,
thing, right? Yeah.
But then obviously
Frankie
Corio from After Sun. But then I'm like, what is the age range on that? Like, is it 25 and under? Is it 20 something and under?
Nathaniel Rogers actually does a really good job of this every year, where he puts down like the age range and like who's actually eligible.
Okay, cool. Okay, because I kind of needed that, because I threw people in there of like even Gregory Mann who does the voice of Pinocchio in GDT's Pinocchio, and then but I'm like, does someone like Amber Midthunder from Prey, she's
qualify?
25?
Yeah,
is that
it's like the cutoff points,
like,
or
I don't know. So I had her in there too, because I'm like, I'd love to give Prey some love, but like it's not gonna.
You want to pray
for
Prey?
Other than that category, it's not gonna show up anywhere. But
it's also cool to see when awards groups think outside the box a little bit as well,
for
like
categories.
Yeah, because I mean the Gotham Awards were just the other day as we're recording this, but also the Spirit Award nominations were announced, and seeing something like Marcel the Shell with Shoes On in editing, I think is a really cool nomination. Because when I had the chance to talk to Dean Fleischer Camp, he was talking about how he was writing the script and editing the movie almost simultaneously, and like how the story was changing as he was making the movie. So the editing is just as important as the animation is, and it does qualify for animation as well. So you have movies like Marcel the Shell with Shoes On and Pinocchio kind of being, even though Turning Red is incredible and I still think is probably the best animated movie of the year, you have stuff that isn't just simply Disney movies, and like that is also really wonderful to see, where there is healthy competition within that category. I mean, obviously Shrek won, back in the day, but it's nice.
We saw the Oscar live in person.
We sure did. We got its autograph and everything.
I mean, Puss in Boots comes out in a month, I guess. But
yeah, and so like again, like it doesn't always have to be one thing, right? Like it's the same thing with Best Picture. Best Picture doesn't have to be all indie movies or all kind of social
depressing dramas.
It can be
Top Gun Maverick.
I guess I'll go into this a little bit now. One of the things that I really did like about the Everything Everywhere All at Once press conference that had the Daniels,
which also won Best Picture at the Gotham Awards. Let's just lump all this together.
And Ke Huy Quan won supporting the supporting because they're gender neutral now. The supporting person wins. So
that's interesting.
So the thing I really loved, and Jamie Lee Curtis and Ke Huy Quan were also a part of the discussion. One thing that Daniel Kwan said that really kind of stuck with me is that, the last question is like, what do you think this movie will be looked upon years to come? And like, what does it mean now to people? And Kwan's response was like, it was creating something that was a bit of both, but it wasn't necessarily thought of like becoming an awards film when they were making it. But there was that combination of the world that we live in now, and specifically the industry, the film industry, is so, basically divided in what it's doing. There's this one side where it's all superhero movies and big budget films, and the studio system is making those movies in and out,
popcorn money movies.
And they're kind of overwhelming the smaller films from getting not even just made, but films that are made from getting into the theater. And any kind of eyes on the screen. So with that, it was kind of Everything Everywhere All at Once is kind of this hybrid of the two things, where it's like you can have both. You can make both within something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, where it does play both comedically and both, you know, action and adventure, and, you know, playing up the idea of, you know, classic kung fu movies and things like that. But then also you can find depth and empathy and understanding within the character development and, you know, the personal arcs that everybody has. And that kind of felt like, oh, that's a perfect, Everything Everywhere All at Once is that perfect middle ground of two worlds coming together in a way that clashes but also complements
Yeah.
each other. And I think that's why it's done so well this year. Like, they made a move, they shot this thing in fucking 38 days, and, you know, it's incredible to think
It's
that, like,
wild. Just like going back to the interview we even had with them, like
yeah,
it's crazy, and it's still my favorite movie of the year. And I will be screaming from the rooftops during awards season for it to win everything. No pun intended.
all at
Ju-
once.
yeah, jumping off that too. I watched the Hollywood Reporter Roundtable, the Writers Roundtable. Do you watch these each year, Eric, or no?
I do, but
It depends on who it is. That's kind of how I take it.
yes, and you know what, like, I watched a little bit of it, but I have to be honest, I don't like the moderator.
Mhm.
He's not,
Scott Feinberg.
yeah, not a very good person. Sorry, Scott. I like, he's just tweeted some stuff recently that's really kind of been
I don't
offensive.
know much, so I'll
Yeah.
I will I understand. But I will definitely look into that. But I think that aside, it's about the actual, like, I think the moderator should stay out of it as much as possible, to be
Yeah.
honest, in these things. Like, I get that you kind of have to guide the conversation and ask questions, but like, I almost wish it was kind of that actors on actors kind of style, where it's just let them all talk to one another and ask questions about each other's movies, because I found that stuff the most interesting. Where you had Jordan Peele, Ryan Johnson, Martin McDonough, Daniel Kwan, Tony Kushner, and Chinoye Chukwu.
Yes, the director of
Who's
Till.
of Till, yeah.
Yeah.
And ironically, they're all the directors of their movies as well, except for Tony Kushner, right?
Yeah.
Like, which I thought was interesting. Like, I guess that I understand why they do that, but it's like, oh well, we have too many people for the directors roundtable, so let's put them all over.
Well,
On the
they're multi
screenwriters side.
hyphenates, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. And then it's also just interesting that you have both Tony Kushner and Martin McDonough sitting at the same table,
Playwrights,
and they're
yeah.
playwrights. You know, like, that's,
Yeah, they brought that up, and that was some of the, like, that's why I like these roundtables. Just getting a bunch of people who are very similar backgrounds or very different backgrounds, but all kind of trying to do the same thing, and each one of these movies being very different from one another. Was just kind of really interesting to hear them all talk. And even Daniel Kwan brought up some of the things you already mentioned, and just hearing Jordan Peele talk about, Nope, and, comparing it to Spielberg's work, and then Tony Kushner coming in, and they talked about improv, and like how, and Kushner was like, I hate fucking improv. It's always awful. Like, and then other people kind of defending it, like Ryan Johnson or Daniel Kwan, and really eloquently, like, kind of, they're not, they're disagreeing with the person, but doing it very respectfully, right? Of going like, I understand why Tony Kushner, who is a playwright and who, the written word is the movie, where someone like in Everything Everywhere All at Once, or even in Glass Onion.
Well, Glass Onion, though,
Kinda
is interesting because when we were at that press conference, you know, everybody was talking about
said
how
that
Ryan Johnson created such a structured environment that they felt so free to kind of go as big as they wanted to, but also kind of, you know, play within the written words, you know?
and I think he mentions that, right? Like, and Jordan Peele even brought it up in a funny way, being like, you always want actors to think they're improvising or adding something, but really they're doing what you want. And then, which was funny. And then Daniel Kwan being like, they all talked about getting their version, like at least one or two takes of what is written on the script, but then like people like Daniel Kwan going, well, then I go just one give me whatever the fuck you want. Like, just do whatever you want. And like, he's like, and sometimes he's like, yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's bad. He's like, but he's like, that one time you get like that magical kind of thing where they do something better than what you wrote down. And I thought all that kind of stuff was really interesting, but that was coming from them as directors as well as screenwriters, right? Where it's funny, Tony Kushner, the only guy there that was purely a screenwriter, was the one going, fuck improv. Like, no, not a chance. He's like, I've had fights with Spielberg about this kind of stuff. And like, he's like, we got into it because of, these young actors on West Side Story wanted to kind of put their own spin on things. And he's
a future War Games with Tony Kushner versus Spielberg.
In the double ring steel cage. So it was a fun watch. Like, I do like those roundtables, moderator aside. I don't know much about him.
You can look it up and you'll see it right away.
I will after this, but or while we're recording. But I just like a group of contemporaries. That was the word that I was looking for, like sitting together and discussing their craft. Like, that's why these things are very interesting to me. And they should be putting this out as a podcast. Like,
they should, yeah. I think it.
I don't know why they don't, because I'm like, oh, I could just listen to this in bed. But maybe you want people to connect who's speaking, because maybe not everyone will know their voices and stuff like that. So I get it, but I feel like I would love this as a podcast where, each year they do so many of these, even if it's like a season of it where you only put out, a bunch of them for each category, but or one for each category. But
well, there's similar I mean, like, bouncing off of that, there are other avenues as well, not just the Hollywood Reporters Roundtable, which is I do like a lot of them. But like, if you want to kind of follow a podcast that isn't the Untitled Movie Podcast or Untitled Movie Reviews, the DGA podcast is always a good one to go to, because it's usually
a director on director, right?
Yeah, it's one-on-one. And one of the more recent ones was Steven Spielberg talking to Paul Thomas Anderson, and Paul Thomas Anderson, interviewing.
PTA was brought up multiple times on that screenwriters
as he should be. And PTA was the moderator for the post Fablemans screening, and like, hearing those two guys talk to each other is really wonderful to hear. And sometimes those pairings are just really interesting, because it's like, sometimes it's like, either a colleague or somebody that, is a generation either below or above, and seeing how those, two worlds interact. And then sometimes, you just see two friends who have worked together, on other projects, having a conversation about movies. So yeah, the DGA podcast is always one to kind of go back to, especially it's updated pretty recently. Like, it's every week or so, based on, not even award stuff. Like, sometimes it's just like what's coming out this week. There's a really good sort of like post-screening interview.
Yeah, those are always the best when it's contemporaries, whether it's two or a round table. Like the A24 podcast is that as well, usually, where like I listened to the Nathan Fielder and Alexa Demi episode, which was great. And I don't listen to many like film podcasts. It's weird because like we do one so frequently that it's like I don't want to go listen to one after. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or like in my free time, like it's like I don't want it to influence me, or I don't want it to like, or I talk about it so much I don't need to listen to others do it. Like I still, again, I watch Kind of Funny in Review a lot and their screencast stuff, but that's so casual that it's just friends talking about something. It doesn't like, it both feels like something we do and not, or I guess I'm just so familiar with those guys that it's just I don't mind throwing that on. But like other than these roundtables every Oscar season where I kind of jump in and listen to contemporaries discuss stuff, that I don't listen to much other film content. It's more like video games and wrestling, sports.
Well, it's always good to have like a year in review kind of show like that as well, to kind of go back and be like, oh, these are some of the movies throughout the entire year that kind of defined the culture and what everybody was talking about or seeing at the theater or watching at home or catching up with. And it's like, oh yeah, like, Nope came out the same year as, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And, same thing with Banshees or The Fablemans. It's like all these movies were released throughout the last 12 months. And now we're kind of looking at it more as a whole than just simply like going through month to month, and like seeing again something like Everything Everywhere All at Once having its initial run as just wanting to be a specialty release in March become a cultural phenomenon by the summer, and how it really was one of the few films, like even though I didn't like Elvis, but Elvis, Everything
I
Everywhere
gotta
All at
watch
Once.
Elvis still. That's like one that I kind of will watch before
Right.
voting, even though I don't expect to like vibe with it, but I'm curious.
Yeah, oh, the snowman.
I gotta go stir
I'm
my
the
chili. Keep
snowman.
talking.
Yeah, and Top Gun Maverick were the films that really kept this year going. That first quarter into the summer, even, and then Nope coming up in July. Those were the films that really helped the cinemas sustain themselves, the multiplexes specifically. And so with that in mind, it's a way to reward those movies, not only for how well made they are or how much passion they have, but it's a way of kind of like these were life preservers for the theaters in a lot of ways.
Totally, yeah. And I feel like that someone tweeted this, and I don't know who it was, so I'm sorry, but they were like, the first half of this year feels almost superior to the second half. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like I feel like the awards baity movies this year aren't really hitting as hard as maybe they'd want them to, or as
Or the
I wanted them
definition
to, or like,
is
yeah,
changing, right?
and which is great, because I don't think that all awards movies should have to come out in November and December, right? Like, so it's nice to see things that you just mentioned, like Everything Everywhere All at Once being the conversation, Top Gun Maverick, RRR even to an extent. Something like Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, After Yang won't probably show up anywhere, but these are some of my favorites of the year. Chippendale Rescue Rangers, the Batman, Nope came out, even though that was still in July and earlier, but like it's still in the first half of the year, kind of, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting, because I felt like I've said this whole year that it's been such a banger year for movies, but I do feel like that slowed down a little bit. Like, even I keep bringing up, like, I'm not on the Fablemans hate train like other people. I think I agree with people who are saying that Paul Dano and Michelle Williams aren't super great. Like, they're
very
fine,
stylized
but
performances,
yeah,
right? That
and I
are
don't like
divisive.
that,
but
yeah,
I think the second half of that movie is the stronger part of that film, and I think that ending is so good that it's like a lot of people do forgive the things that don't work for them.
A great ending is
Yeah.
is important to any movie for it to kind of stick with you. But Fablemans is kind of faded from my
Faded
from
Fablemans.
but there are obviously things like Babylon, Glass Onion, Women Talking, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, After Sun, that have come out in that latter half of the year. Bones and All still creeping up too. It's stuck with me.
You're still chewing on it, huh?
Hey, I actually am. Like, it's one of those movies that, I didn't know how I felt. I still ultimately liked it, but it has lingered with me more than some of these other movies that I mentioned, right? Like even Triangle of Sadness kind of fading out, but I don't know if that's all just kind of like because I saw them during TIFF and I haven't really thought about them much, and like but it's been interesting. And
going back to the Fablemans for a second, like it's interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot and talking to some people about this, where it's interesting because the Fablemans is a very personal story to Spielberg specifically, and obviously Tony Kushner was there to kind of help guide him through, and he's talked about it being like therapy sessions when they were writing the script. But watching this movie, and I still like the Fablemans quite a bit as well, it's just I think the second half of it is stronger.
Strongly about it.
No, I think Gabriel LaBelle is the best in showing that movie as Sammy.
There's someone who would be in the young actors category.
Yeah, he's fantastic in the movie. But I found that West Side Story was more weirdly personal for Spielberg in a way, because Spielberg for so long had been wanting to make a musical, and he is a filmmaker that is so precise, in both, his technological range, but also in his storytelling, that it kind of felt perfect in terms of how the choreography and the editing and just the tone of that movie played out so perfectly, and it felt more intimate to who Spielberg was as a filmmaker than the Fablemans. And then with the Fablemans, you look at the beats that the Fablemans have. Well, he's either written, in his own scripts or been sort of drawn to other stories that have had those elements and felt more personal within, Close Encounters and E.T. And War of the Worlds even than the Fablemans. We've gotten a lot of that. And you even mentioned it, I think, with, when we did the review of Armageddon Time, where, we
It's
got a
way
lot
more
of
interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
well, with James Gray, like we got more of James Gray in Ad Astra than maybe we were
That's
thinking
the
of,
point I was
or
gonna
The
make, is,
Yards,
like,
even his second movie. So yeah.
to me, it's more interesting when a filmmaker puts themselves into something else rather than them just
Doing a straightforward
yeah.
autobiography.
Yeah, and I think I've realized that this year because we've gotten so many of them, and some of them are good. I think The Fablemans is obviously a very good movie. It's, again, everything you mentioned from a technical standpoint, it's perfect. It's just like some of the performance is a little over the top for me, and it's just kind of faded from my memory. And I agree with you with Gabriel LaBelle's fantastic, and there's a lot of good stuff.
Oh,
in
and
that
Judd
movie.
Hirsch, I think, is a lot of fun too.
Yeah, same. The whole Judd Hirsch for supporting actor, I'm like, guys, it's
No,
one scene.
it's one scene.
It's one
give it to
scene.
David
Come
Lynch
on.
at that point.
I know. I'm like, I'm not saying you can't be amazing in one scene and get a Best Supporting Actor nomination, but I'm like,
it's
I love Judd
happened
Hirsch too,
multiple times.
But I know it has. It's just like, come on. I don't know. Like, I'm like, I get someone can be great in one scene, but I'm like, it's not a Best Cameo award. Come on, you got to have something of a little bit more substance.
Judd Hirsch on Cameo?
Mean,
would you get that for the holidays?
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying any one scene performance can't be so impactful that it shouldn't win an award, but like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just hating on Fablemans, hating on Fablemans right now.
I don't disagree with you, but I do feel that like sometimes an actor can walk away with the movie and you're thinking about them even when they're not on screen. And like the name that always came up, or like the kind of that the perfect example of that was when Beatrice Straight won for Network, and she's basically in 2 scenes in the movie and her screen time is like less than 10 minutes in total, and she won supporting actress that year. And then like you look at actors that maybe have 1 or 2 scenes that get nominated for Oscars, like again, like another name that comes up is someone like William Hurt for A History of Violence, who's not even in the film until like the last 10-20 minutes of the movie, and literally has this one sequence with Viggo Mortensen. And even though Ed Harris was in basically half of the film and is amazing and so subtle and really wonderful, that performance is so
God, I gotta watch History of Violence. What a movie.
Yeah.
What a movie.
One of David Cronenberg's best kind of quote unquote accessible films, but
yeah, straightforward movies.
Yeah, but still Cronenbergian in many ways. But yeah, you go and look at like certain, like, I mean, you can even break it down when it comes, I mean, we're talking about category fraud, and like the lead performances getting into supporting categories, like the first time I ever was kind of aware of that was with Jake Gyllenhaal in Brokeback Mountain, where that's a co-lead, and then he gets nominated for supporting actor, which was the same year that William Hurt got nominated for A History of Violence. So it's like that year you have like one end where it's like the lead
cameo,
the leading man is supporting, and then the cameo
one
is
guy
also
in it
nominated.
Too much, one in it too little. So,
yeah. And it was also just funny when they showed, like, because it was Nicole Kidman presenting the award, and that was the year George Clooney won for Syriana. And when they present each award that year, they had these these kind of what do they call it? I'm blanking on the words. Like it like almost like a collage of scenes where the characters were in the film. So you have so you have like Clooney in multiple scenes, and then it kind of like does this weird kind of swipe where it shows you the clip. And then with William Hurt, it's like basically one scene collage.
If your whole performance can fit in your Oscar clip, you should like. Sorry, it's a cameo. It's not supporting. I'm being sort of facetious, but yeah, it's gonna be a fun year. We'll talk a lot about awards over the next 2 months. At least this year it's earlier again. It's not like in March, right? Like that's what I think I'm looking forward to the most. Is that I guess the Oscars are still like in February, right? Like late February.
Yeah, and that's the thing though,
But
we'll probably still be sick of it all, even the
oh,
stuff
totally,
that we
yeah.
like Everything Everywhere All at Once, just
I won't be
talking
sick
about
of
it
it, no.
at NOS. Well, just not in terms of the movie, but talking about its awards
chances
potential and
stuff
things
it,
like
yeah.
that. And I guess another good thing to kind of like just, since we're talking about awards, it was announced that all 23 categories this year at the Oscars will be presented live during the actual telecast. Variety had the exclusive article on that.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Good steps. It'll be a long ceremony again. I don't know.
But it'll
We've
also be
talked
very
way too much
safe,
about how
right?
yeah.
Because
like,
with
I don't know
Kimmel
how they
being the
fix
host.
it, but yeah, it's going to be a very safe year for that kind of stuff. But good to see that all of the awards will be presented on the show live. Alrighty. So we're already 40 minutes in, which I feel like that was all intro stuff, even though it wasn't. We talked a lot award stuff, but we have a lot to get to, and we have a special in like 28 minutes. Cinema will be saved. The Super Mario Brothers trailer will be premiering. Eric and I will watch it live in the edit on YouTube. I'll insert the video. Nintendo's really kind of strict with this stuff, so I don't know. Maybe I'll just the audio. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do, but we're gonna react to it live and then talk about it in 28 minutes. So if we're in the middle of talking about something else, I'll cut Eric off because this is the most important thing to happen in 2022. So.
And probably 2023, right? And 2024 when it wins Best Picture.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But other than that, dude, I like, what else have you been watching? Anything else? I know it's the holidays. I know you're not a big holiday guy, but
yeah.
Have you been
I celebrate
watching...
Festivus.
Fair. So you just watched that Seinfeld episode over
sure
and over
did.
again.
No, I did rewatch a couple of things, and I'll be quick because they're I just rewatched Casablanca.
You only have 28 minutes before 27 minutes now before.
Well, Matt, you know me. That's not a lot of time.
That's one movie.
Rewatched Casablanca, the 80th anniversary of the film. Still a banger. Still one of the greatest movies ever made. And it, again, like you look at a film like that,
it's been a while, but
when it's been a while. When it was made, like it wasn't really expected to be anything other than just like a studio movie that would make some money, and now it's kind of one of the quintessential classics of all time, but also just like it's so much a part of pop culture, and like it's fascinating to look back at a movie like that, which like the expectations of it was like, oh no, we'll make a movie with Humphrey Bogart and this thing will kind of maybe make a little bit of money, and then we'll move on to the next thing. And that's how the studio system worked in the 1940s. And it was just kind of like, okay, we're working on things that are just basically there to make a quick profit, and then we'll make something else. And it is so beautifully made and memorable and haunting, and Ingrid Bergman as well. Like it's like you just think about like key moments and classic scenes, and the anthem sequence, but also certain lines of dialogue, like Claude Rains at the end saying "round up the usual suspects" and stuff like that. It's just all very iconic and ingrained in movie culture, but in pop culture in general, but in just daily references. Like even if you haven't seen the movie, you still get those references because you probably have seen them somewhere else, and like that's kind of a very powerful thing to think about. And just having been at the Academy Museum recently, like it just you think about that a little bit more, about the legacy of certain movies and what it means to stand the test of time. So yeah.
Nice. I have seen Casablanca once. It's been a long time, and I didn't understand anything you just referenced. So,
well, apparently, my whole conversation there is it doesn't work then. But
I'm a moron. I don't like.
But you get the line, "Play it again, Sam." Right? Like you
sort of.
Well, the naked gun. play our song again, and then he starts playing Ding Dong the Witch is Dead instead of
probably didn't even understand the reference when I saw Naked Gun.
no, but it's there, right? Like it's
I understand that. I'm an idiot, and most people would. But
You're not an
I
idiot.
also I just don't have a great memory. Like I don't retain things, and I also watched it like in film school where it's kind of work. And
it's
I think
academic.
and it's the only time I ever watched it, and I just don't watch old movies. This is my worst year ever for watching stuff at home. At least in since the letterbox years, I'll call it, like since tracking everything I watched, where I'm like, I'm not even gonna hit 200 movies this year, which is like, to some people they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's still a lot of movies. Like I'm still at 150 something, but like I bet you 80% of that are movies we covered, right? Like I feel like,
or saw at TIFF, and like that's probably where that biggest boom is, right? Like for
totally. Like I saw almost 40 movies at TIFF, which if you don't count that's only just over 100 movies this year. We've probably reviewed 2 to 3 movies a week on average, sometimes less, sometimes more. So like I haven't really watched a ton at home, and then on top of that, I don't watch old movies. It's just like it's something I've always talked about that I want to be better at, but
except for Jingle All the Way, which I'm sure you'll be watching
every
soon.
Year. Yeah, every year. You got to. I've watched the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special twice, but I haven't seen Casablanca since I was 21.
Let's see you bench press your way out of this one.
But I do like. There's just a giant list of things that I gotta watch or rewatch and watch again. But there's something my attention span at home, man. That's why like I want to make an effort to go to Lightbox more often to see stuff, and I wish they just played some of these classics, which they do all the time, but like I just need to be better at going, because like sitting in a theater and watching it, like that's how I'm gonna actually, even watching, weird comparison, but watching the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special again with Nevis last night is like I got so much more out of it watching it with her, because when I watch things by myself at home, it's not that I'm not paying attention. It's just like, and with Guardians, we did it that day where we kind of watched it quickly after we recorded half of a podcast and had to jump back into it. So it felt more like work, and it was the middle of the day. I watched it on my laptop. Like I was like, oh, it was fun, but I don't have much to say about it. But when I sat down with Nevis at home, and this goes with anything, I'm rewatching Andor with her as well. I make an effort when I'm watching with another person to be respectful, put my phone away, sit down and engage with what's on the TV with the other person, and then talk about it with them after or whatever, or have that experience with them. I'm not on my phone. I'm not watching it while I'm editing, or not that I do that with stuff we review, but like if I watch stuff at home, typically like I'm distracted.
There's more distractions, right?
Yeah, where if I'm watching it with someone else, I'm not, or if I'm at the theater, I'm paying attention to it. So like I enjoyed Guardians so much more the second time, because it was at night watching it with my wife. We were both locked in, and like I watched it, and I really, really loved it.
You were really
like,
rooting for it.
Yeah. And then even something like Spirited, which isn't a great movie, but I sat down, watched it with my wife, right atmosphere, and really loved it. So I think with like a lot of these, like if I sat down and watched Casablanca on Blu-ray, like here, it'd probably take me 4 tries to get through it. I'd go on my phone, I'd miss something, and I'd be like, do I want to rewind it? No. And then like, which isn't the way that you should be watching Casablanca. So like, I gotta go to the theater, or I gotta like have a classic movie night with my wife or with you or something like that to actually like sit down and watch these fucking things. But I didn't make a time code. So when do you think we started talking about what we've been watching? Like the 40-minute mark?
You're asking me. But I know what you're saying, where it's like there is, not to say that there's an obligation when you're watching, a movie with a friend or a partner or what have you, but there is something where there is a certain amount of respect. But it's weird as well, because like I also like watching stuff by myself, because I don't feel like any stress about like, oh, I recommended this movie and we're watching this together, and like I feel bad if the other person isn't liking it. You know what I mean? Like if I don't like the movie that I'm watching,
Who cares? Yeah.
who cares, right? You know, like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's like, you know, I'm relaxed. I'm still, you know, taking it in and enjoying the experience overall because it's watching a movie. But if I'm with somebody that, you know, I'm like, hey, Matt, let's watch Motherless Brooklyn together. And then you are not liking it. I feel bad because I was the one recommending it, you know, and you went off my recommendation. So that's where it's like, especially when it's somebody that is more personal. I find the more personal it is more awkward or difficult. And, you know, that comes up from that does come up from time to time with like family as well, where like you know, we've talked about that on the show.
You recommend movies and then your parents watch it and they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Why did you recommend EO, Eric? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I get you with that. But so I already kind of covered what I've been watching. I watched Spirited and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special for the second time. So you can check out a review of the Holiday Special. My thoughts have changed. I'm a little higher on it now. We were a little bit more medium on it when we reviewed it. But I think it's, you know, it's just enjoyable, super, super enjoyable. And so is Spirited. Like if you like Christmas movies and like just musicals in general, like, you know, I again, I'm not the biggest fan of Ryan Reynolds lately, but like he fits the role and I'm a sucker for Will Ferrell. So in Will Ferrell Christmas movies, like I love Elf. So
I was laughing at somebody brought it up recently where and it was on Twitter, and again, I apologize, I don't know who it was, but it was amazing where like after Elf became such a success, there were interviews with Jon Favreau saying, yeah, we're looking into writing Elf 2 and having a second film, and we're kind of gearing up to do that in the next couple of years. And then there's another interview with like Will Ferrell for something that was another junket, but like around the same time. And it's like, yeah, we're not doing that. And then there's another interview with Jon Favreau
Don't they
saying,
not like each other?
oh, they hate each other. And apparently James Caan was the one who's like, yeah, Will Ferrell and Favreau did not get along on set. So it's always funny seeing those, like, it's like a weird back and forth thing where it's like, again, like he's done it a couple times with Favreau, was like, yeah, we're looking into it now. And then the next time Ferrell was on a junket for something, it's like, no, it's not happening. It's never going to happen. I'm shutting this down.
Well, there's an elf, like an elf. I don't know if it's a dig or if it's a, you know, but someone dressed as Buddy the Elf comes up to Will Ferrell at a Christmas costume party, and he goes, "You look stupid," and like walks away. And like, I think that's the joke. But I'm like, I think, I don't think we're ever gonna get an Elf 2, but like, I think that is a Christmas classic. We did a whole episode, which you guys should go back and listen to if you haven't, where Eric and I did what is the most recent Christmas classic. And Eric, I'll throw it out there, Spirited in contention. It's like, I know,
well, it was only just released, like, so
yeah,
you know,
that's what I'm saying. But we'll have to wait a year or two to see if it stands that test of time, because we had that whole episode where we talked about what the most recent Christmas classic was, and I think Elf was up there, right, of the most recent.
Yes, yeah, Elf. I mean, we talked about Polar Express a little bit as well. Arthur Christmas was another one that came up a couple times this year. I mean,
Violent Night.
Yes, will Violent Night be the film that is, you know, this year's Christmas movie, or the Christmas movie to rewatch in years to come? And, you know, people will dissect it to the point where it becomes obnoxious, and people are still talking about Die Hard, whether or not it's a Christmas movie or not. Who cares?
Please stop that.
I mean, it is a Christmas movie, and it's not a Christmas movie. It's a Christmas movie in the sense that it takes place.
You want it to be. If you want it to be a Christmas movie, it's a Christmas movie.
Where it
if
works,
you want to watch it in July, watch it in July.
That's the thing, though. That is the one thing that I will say, where like Die Hard
most
works
Christmas movies
you don't watch in the summer. You like, you are like bordering on serial killer mode if you're watching.
If you watch Elf in June, you're out of your mind.
Or like, you know, even It's a Wonderful Life, which isn't really like, that's the one people should be debating more, because it's only a Christmas movie in the last act of the film. But yeah, like if you're watching Elf or Polar Express or, you know, any of those like classic, you know, stop motion animated Christmas musical movies in the summer or something like that, then yeah, like
you're a sociopath.
You're going to be put on a list, and
but
it's going to be
watch
checked
Die Hard,
twice.
so you're kind of making an argument that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Then,
but what I'm saying is because you can watch Die Hard during, like, you can throw that on any time of the year, but you can still watch it during the holidays and still consider it a holiday movie because it does take place on December 24th. It thematically
Christmas party.
Yeah. I mean,
we talked about even in the Guardian special of like most Christmas movies, just like Christmas is just happening. It's not like a necessary plot device or part of the plot or anything like that.
I mean, Jingle All the Way weirdly has become a modern, and when I say, like, I know it's the 90s, but like in terms of our generation growing up with movies, it seems to have gone on to become kind of a classic in its own right because people do revisit it.
A Christmas cult classic.
Yeah, in that same way where like
it's a bad movie, but I love it.
Oh, it's terrible. It's god awful. Although I was looking for Turbo Men and boosters on eBay.
Were you?
Yeah, I was. Yes. And there's one where you can get them and they're the authentic versions.
Nobody wants Booster.
Booster's awesome, man.
I know.
From Planet Hollywood, and they're going for like $5,000.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yeah, he rose on Christmas.
No, wait, he was born.
On Christmas.
That was Easter. Damn it. We fucked that up totally. Well, I'm a bad Catholic.
And I mean, I was baptized, but I don't consider myself Catholic.
Well, so. Same. I'm kind of
bad Baptist.
Yeah. What else you want to? Anything else you've been watching? I mean, we both finished Andor, right? We might review this season. I don't know if we will. We can talk about it.
Rick's Road, man, like it all came together perfectly. Like
it's
it is
good.
The best season or best Star Wars show. Like I think it's even better than The Mandalorian. Sorry, Grogu, love you still, but
I love Grogu, but it's a better television show. Mandalorian might be more fun if you can argue that, but like I think this is a better television show.
This is Star Wars for adults, and no, but it is in a way like it's actually treating the material with respect in the sense that it's looking at the story first, and it's not necessarily like we're not building a screenplay based on the iconography that's come before, the canon that's come before. That is there, and that's probably going to play more into it in season 2, obviously. But it felt like, okay, let's actually tell a great story before, adding in all of this other stuff that is a part of the Star Wars universe.
It's the perfect way to use it. They looked at what Star Wars is. Okay, what are the main, pieces? What is the conflict? What is all this stuff? And then they go, okay, how can I relate that back to what's going on today? Or just, how humans interact with one another, and how can I tell a great story from that, and then use all of those pieces to kind of make this really great piece of stuff. Are you gone? Or are you still here?
No, I'm here.
Why does it say offline for you?
I don't know.
Now that worries me. You're still here.
Boy. Yeah, and I can see you and I can hear you.
Yeah.
Right. Behind the scenes of Zencaster.
We'll keep going, but I hope halfway through your audio doesn't just cut out. I lost my train of thought, but anyways, just using Star Wars as the set dressing almost, but then also finding, that the nut of what Star Wars is, and then
the Christmas nut.
The most Star Wars thing I think we've ever gotten since the original trilogy, that really, I think, understands the universe really, even if it has no maybe reverence for it. It not in a bad way. It's just taking it for exactly what it is and finding the best possible story you could tell from that. And much like you said at the beginning of the year, if I said Top Gun Maverick might get nominated for Best Picture, I don't think anyone was going Andor was going to be the best Star Wars thing we've gotten since the original trilogy. Like, I don't think anyone would have said that. But
now we adore Andor.
It's shockingly good. I'm rewatching it with Nevis now, like I mentioned. The next episode is The Eye, so I'm so excited to watch that again. And she's, it took her a second. The first couple episodes, she was like, yeah, I don't know about this. And I'm like, please just stick it out, get to episode 4 and 5. I know people hate when people do that. Like, I'm with you. If I talk to someone, they're like, just wait to episode 4 of season 3 and it gets really, really good. It's like, I
The
hate
Leftovers.
that.
Wait until you get to season 3 when it reboots itself again.
Yeah. And you're like, just get through it. And I fucking hate when people do that. But with Andor, I was like, it's get through those first 3 episodes. The end of episode 3, you'll probably be like, okay, I see what this is doing. And then, I mean, you think you see what it's doing. And then episode 4, you start to go, oh, damn, like there's a lot going on here. It's complex, it's deep, it's stylish, it's fun at times, it's exciting, it's thrilling. And then when the eye hits, I feel like that episode 6, right? And then you just start to go, oh shit, this show is a banger. Like, this show fucking rules. So like, I can't wait to get to that point. But even Nevis after episode 5 she's like, no, I'm all in. It feels, she even mentioned, like, it feels like an HBO show, like all the different settings and locations and people and storylines, like ABCD plot. It's heady, it's dense, it doesn't spoon feed you anything. It really just kind of drops you in, and you kind of have to go, like, there's so many planets and characters that you're just like, wait, what the fuck is going on? But if you understand like the simple concept of what Star Wars is, you can kind of make it through, and then it gives you more and more of those pieces as it's going on. And I won't spoil anything here, but yeah, that last episode 12, it's just like, I haven't watched a TV show in a long time where I'm like, fucking fuck yeah, like, as things are happening on the screen. Like, there's a funeral scene that is fucking incredible in the last episode, of just how it comes together, and this speech that is delivered, that is one of the best Star Wars speeches I've ever heard. And like, it perfectly encapsulates like why this rebellion is starting, and why the Empire is such a fascist, shitty fucking piece of shit, where you're just like, you want these people to rise up, and you're cheering for these people that like are just on this ground level, and some of them, they're not necessarily the hero with powers that is going to save the galaxy. These are the people that started all of this, so Luke Skywalker can defeat his father and the Emperor and stuff like that. Like, it's so cool to just see that people rising up against these horrible people. And I think they did such a good job with it.
Yeah, it's one of those shows where it's like, I started rewatching it again over the weekend. And
you're also rewatching it too. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's because like when we first did the reviews for the screeners that we got, it did take some time. Those first couple of episodes were all about kind of, the early developing of not just Andor, but the characters around him, the different locations, how the tone was going to be different from everything we've seen so far in the Star Wars canon, including Rogue One. Like, it is very much a dialogue driven set, directed kind of production, where it's all about the communication between characters. And specifically when you have rebels talking to other people that are on that ground level, or you have people within the Empire and the bureaucracy of it all, and then you have double agents like Stellan Skarsgård's character. It's all there. It just takes a little bit of time to kind of mount that perfect moment, and that moment, in that final episode, it all pays off perfectly. It's brilliant. It really is exactly what you want from Star Wars. It isn't as respectful or reverent to the what's come before, but it is taking what is needed, and then it's also creating something new within the legacy that already exists, and saying, hey, like, there's so much more that you could do with all of this than just have a Skywalker saga. And that is what Andor does so well. It's kind of saying, hey, there's, even with like going past Andor, Andor is only going to be 2 seasons. It's like, there is so much more that you can do with all of these characters. Like, who knew Mon Mothra back when Return of the Jedi was being released would be such a big
Mon
deal.
Mothma, isn't it?
Mon Mothra, sorry. I keep saying sorry. The point I was making though is Mon Mothra is again like you look at the character in Return of the Jedi and kind of just giving some exposition before
Yeah.
kind of, you know, the characters kind of go to Endor and are, you know, infiltrating the new Death
You
Star.
like knew she was an important person in the Rebel Army, but you were like, oh, okay.
It's a throwaway
She's just-
character though.
Yeah, and then
now,
she shows up a little bit more in the prequels, and you're like, oh, we'll never see her again. And
Yeah.
then she shows up in Rogue One, and you're like, oh, that's cool. And now she gets like this whole, you know, C plot or B. I guess it's the B plot probably.
Yeah.
Who knows? They're all A plots, but like,
still waiting for her to
like-
turn into Mothra though.
yeah, exactly. No, it's so good.
But
dude.
it
It's
is
so good.
amazing how they were able to flesh out these characters in a way that, like, again, it kind of, the Book of Boba Fett wanted to do that a little bit, but at the same time, it's like here you are getting those characters that, you know, Andor, you know, even with Forrest Whitaker, with the little screen time he's had, it kind of feels tonally different from what he was doing in Rogue One, and it's
Yeah.
more, it's a little more subtle. Like he's still kind of theatrical, but it's
Yeah,
not
he's
but it's
not
not too intense. Like it actually makes more sense.
Yeah, I'm all about it. I agree with you. I hope, like, I know Andor's only going to be 2 seasons, which is great, but I really hope it finds its audience too, because I do feel like it has its passionate, hardcore, you know, people who are yelling again from I guess not even the rooftops, from like the back
They're
of the
Millennium
galaxy.
Falcons.
Yeah, like just screaming at people to watch it. And they did that interesting thing where they put it on Hulu and FX and Freeform and played it on ABC during Thanksgiving weekend to try to get people's eyes on it. So I
Or the
wonder if
eye
it
on
is.
it.
I wonder if it is just those 3 episodes, it taking a little bit of time. I feel like maybe people dropped out after watching an episode or 2 and was like, I'm sick of Star Wars right now. This really isn't hitting. Like it's maybe too dense or boring, or
The minutia of it, the
yeah.
spycraft of it, the
in those
pacing
first
is
2
slower.
episodes, right? Like
Yeah.
you got to get through 2 hours, maybe even 3 to 4 hours before the show really kind of shows you what it is, and like, and how, you know, how great it is, and it's going to be like. And that's hard for people who haven't necessarily been burned by Star Wars, but like, I feel like it is a brand that isn't necessarily like fading, but people aren't as patient with, right? Like I feel
Or they
like,
want something specific.
Yeah,
Like they want
yeah.
that Star Wars is this to them and it can't be anything else. And if you
but I think they'd be
color out
open to
those
this in
lines,
yeah, I feel
they
like
don't
if they
like it.
got to episode 4 or 5, like again, they would be on board. Like if you love Star Wars, there's no way you get to the eye and not go, this episode of TV is fucking awesome, and then the rest of the show is just rules.
yes.
Everything after the eye is so good, and even watching those beginning episodes, I go, man, this is so different than what the show becomes and ultimately ends up as, even though it's still telling the same story and it all feels cohesive and complementary to each other. But like when you get through, you know, the heist saga, and then you move into the prison saga, and then like it's so wild to be saying there's like sagas in a 1 season of Star Wars TV that ended up being like these 4 to 5 episode kind of arcs. Maybe there's just those 2 sagas and then that final kind of epilogue, but like it's can't wait to see where season 2 goes. And I'm with you where like I hope something spins off of this, a spin-off of a spin-off, where we get more of like the inner workings of the Empire and the Rebel Army and stuff like that. And like, because I feel like you could do more, like even what was going on when Han, Luke, and Leia are doing their shit. But like, what are the rebels?
Dash
actually
Rendar, baby,
up to?
bring him
I
in.
know someone was like, if you could make any piece of Star Wars content, what would it be? And I'm like, it's got to be Dash Rendar. And
Yeah.
so I have the Super Mario Brothers YouTube window open. I can send it to you, Eric.
Yes, please do.
I'll tweet or I'll iMessage you over. So that's enough about what we've been watching, because here's what we're going to be watching in 2023: the Super Mario Brothers movie. Eric and I did a reaction to the first Super Mario Brothers trailer a couple months ago, right?
Yes, yes, we did.
Super Mario
Oh, that a live
Bros.
chat is up for this.
I turned that off. Yeah,
I did too. I
it's
just did.
always like, but because like, shout out to Nintendo. Like no other, they're the only ones that they do Nintendo Directs for their games, right? So because they're so involved in the making of this movie, they've been doing Nintendo Directs for the movie. So you don't see like live stream premieres of movie trailers that often anymore. It does happen.
They're probably putting it in front of. Here it comes. In front
starting?
of Violent Night.
Oh, I gotta turn the volume down a little bit.
Sorry about
so
that.
Eric and I are gonna watch this now. I'll have a very low volume. It's Miyamoto. So everyone, we're watching right now. It just started. If you want to watch along, but we don't do this very often. But special occasions like this,
You got to. Imagine if Saw did this for the next Saw movie. Tobin Bell comes on and is like,
them to do that.
Here's Saw 10.
Hilarious. It's almost finished. Oh my God. I can't wait. I hope it's going to be incredible. Is Chris Pratt going to be like, I always loved Koopas at my local bowling alley arcade. It's like, okay, I believe you.
Wait, this isn't Garfield?
Yeah. So we have a dude from Illumination talking. I forget what his name is. Is it another Chris?
He's got a sweet green sweater.
Anya Taylor-Joy. Yep, there she is. Couldn't
Star
get her a
of the
good
menu.
microphone, eh?
Nope.
She recorded this in what looks like to be a bathroom. with like with no
At least a
microphone.
hotel.
Here we go. Miyamoto's back. I'll keep narrating for audio. You guys must love this if you're listening to this on audio. Seth Rogen. Yes.
Wearing a bucket hat.
Hell yeah, Seth Rogen. His name's Zelda. That blocked me on Twitter. Remember? That dog blocked me on Twitter. Why,
You got beef
Seth?
with this dog.
Why? Why did your dog block me on Twitter? All I did was unfollow it.
Man, that's rough.
I'm sorry I unfollowed it. I was just like, I follow. Yeah. Zelda, why'd you block me? Hell yeah, there is. Miyamoto. Okay, here's the trailer, everyone. Here we go. It's Mario. He's walking out. He's breathing. Oh, he's walking into some sort of stadium.
It's like a
Hell
gladiator arena.
A Donkey Kong. Let's go. Mario's punching Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong's smushing him. Sorry if we're silent. We're watching, everyone. He just fucking kills Luigi.
Bowser, yeah.
Oh, Mario's doing some plumbing.
So he is a plumber in this world.
Yes, hell yeah. Yo, this looks so good. I'm all in. Hell yeah, you are Peach. Hell yeah, Toads. Oh, that's cool. Hilarious, hilarious. The Cheap Cheeps. Yo, this looks legit. I don't know what I was
It does look
expecting.
like it is taking the Marvel route a little bit with like
Yeah.
especially Thor Ragnarok with its inspiration. Oh, Mario Kart.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
baby.
Yeah, yep. I'm in.
Rainbow Road. Let's go. Incredible.
It is interesting though that they still don't have Chris Pratt speaking a whole lot in this trailer
Yes,
either.
I know. Yeah, you had Mario in the Tanuki suit at one point, probably flying around because that makes sense. Mario in a raccoon suit, but he
How
can
was it?
fly. Love it, love it. Miyamoto's talking again, everyone. Well, I'll watch that trailer 400 more times.
Dissect every moment of it.
I mean, that looks like a fun ass movie. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it looks cute. You know, I'm happy that Mario Kart is in there. You know, for the kids. Mainly me. But yeah, it's one of those things where like I think, you know, if you're a gaming fan and seeing this come back, especially given how, you know, you've talked about this a lot, where after the live action Super Mario Brothers movie kind of failed horribly, Nintendo was so guarded with, you know, potentially signing off any of their material to produce into either features or TV or what have you. Since then, to see this happen is an exciting step and a possibility for the future. And if it does deliver on kind of being a fun adaptation, which it does look like it isn't trying to be too self-serious, you know, maybe that leads to a Star Fox movie or, you know, something else down the
We
line.
can only hope,
And then
dude,
maybe
yeah.
20 years from now, we'll get our own version of Andor, but in the Mario universe.
Yeah, I have the trailer playing again on silent, but it's just like it's gorgeously animated. I think it's like taking a lot of like good Easter eggs and nods, or in like just all those moments that look like the 2D side-scrolling Mario, or even like this from the original game of Mario going against Donkey Kong, and that in that very original kind of arcade game, and like interpreting that as this kind of thing where Mario has to go against Bowser, and it has the same kind of look and style of that. Like there seems like there's like a lot of love put into this, where to your point, like they're telling a pretty traditional, like, you know, hero's journey kind of story, but then taking all those elements from the games, and the games don't necessarily have great stories. They're just kind of, you know, fun video games. It's Mario against going against Bowser trying to save the princess. But it doesn't even seem like they're necessarily doing the cool damsel in distress thing for Peach here too, which is kind of cool. um I don't know exactly. But even these moments, like I'm looking again, that look like ripped from the video games. Why Mario has to go through these, if that's just how the land is being built, of like that they have those moments of that platforming, kind of jumping through the, you know, getting the fire flowers that you see in this. There's so many cool details that I'm going all over the place. I didn't even notice the field of Yoshi's running like it's Jurassic Park, and like you mentioned the Thor Ragnarok kind of going through the portals kind of thing.
That's
and
my
like,
favorite Sting song, Fields of Yoshi.
Field of Yoshis, yeah. The Mario Kart thing I wasn't expecting either, of them have to drive, you know, carts to probably go fight Bowser at the end of the movie or something. Like, is just like that's how they traverse on the Rainbow Road here. And you see like, oh man, all the characters there. I think you see Funky Kong and man, I'll go through this more after, but I'm legitimately excited for this movie. I know that's maybe setting myself up for disappointment, but because even I've mentioned it before, Illumination, not my favorite animation studio. But I have faith with Miyamoto being involved, Nintendo being involved. I think 2023 is going to be a good year for video game adaptations. Like I've wanted to write an article for a while that just says like, you know, video game adaptations are going to be good, and they're going to be good very soon. And I feel like I don't think superhero movies are slowing down or anything like that, but I think we're almost at a point where video games are being taken very seriously, and they're a huge money maker, almost more than cinema and movies. They're better stories are being told in video games more and more often. I'm playing God of War Ragnarok right now, which I'm kind of waiting until I play the whole game before I talk about it in more detail. But
all hail Richard Schiff.
Yeah, Richard Schiff Odin is awesome. And special guest star Richard Schiff. And I just think that we're with Last of Us in January, this in
April.
March.
April.
Okay.
I said April.
I think like those are the two things that they got to be good, and then if they're going to be good, I think we're gonna start to see like a ton of these things, and hopefully people take them seriously, like, and not just crappy, you know, IP dumps of being like, oh, people know what Tomb Raider is, or people know what Assassin's Creed is, or whatever, and just make like even Assassin's Creed had the at least the ingredients there that you thought they might do something great with it.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean, of Max Payne and fucking Resident Evil and like all the shit of just
The
like,
Hitman
oh,
movies.
here's a name, yeah, here's a, you recognize this video game, here's a movie, like, and that was it. Like, it's not necessarily going, oh, let's find out what people really love about this game and use that, or this game told a really great story, let's now tell that story in another medium, just like we adapt books into movies because not everyone reads books and not everyone plays video games. So like there are those nuggets there from really great games, and even Mario, which is one of the most iconic characters of all time. We talked about it a lot when we went over the first trailer. It's really creative, it looks like, of like how you take elements from Mario Kart, from the first Mario game, from Donkey Kong, from, you know, every aspect of Mario, and go, well, if this was a real world, if the Mushroom Kingdom was a real world or fantasy world or whatever, how would those video game elements work in this world? Like, why is the Mario game, like, say this movie came out before the game, how would they have known what to do in the video game? It's like, okay, let's try to find a way to make this work in a world that seems like it's paying homage to those video game elements, but really kind of works. And I don't know, it's just a trailer, but like from the trailer, seems like they care. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So like that's what's getting me excited. It seems like the people who are working on the movie understand and want this. Not that anyone making a movie wants a movie to be bad, but I think a little bit more love and care is put into certain things, and certain things are just a job or something to make a bit of money, or, you know, something like that. But
well, it's not
I'm
just
excited.
buying the rights to something, right? Like,
Yeah.
like you look
It's the
at that
creators involved with it, right?
Yeah, like you look at that original Mario Brother movie with Ronald Joffe, you know, buying the rights and kind of developing it. It's like it slowly but surely kind of loses its meaning, or what it really kind of, the value of it, and especially when you have either filmmakers or studio executives that are approaching it as a job or another avenue to make money, and it's not being really considered for, you know, not even artistic purposes, but like just like, you know, if you have somebody that created the world that, you know, is being adapted into another medium, whether it be a film or a show or any other format, I think you need somebody to kind of be there to like say like, oh, this is kind of the continuity, or you need like a Dave Filoni or something like that to kind of like steer you in the right direction for how to do it, and not just kind of leave it to the writers to adapt it and then have a studio executive look at the script and be like, oh, I don't get it, let's hire some more writers to come in and then rewrite it, and then, you know,
it
hire
ends
director.
up not even resembling the game that you're adapting.
Not at all. And like that's kind of like the whole point. Maybe there's too much of that though as well, where like sometimes you get too much kind of preciousness and like having too many people kind of be like, oh well,
you want to still take risks, and you still
Yeah.
want to kind of like, I'm all for doing something weird or taking an idea and going, okay, what's an interesting way of tackling this that isn't necessarily something they could do or would do in a video game. So that I understand that aspect too, where this is a kid's movie, it might play it very safe, but I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess is the best term for it, and I can't wait to watch it, just not trying to narrate it as it's happening, and just watch it on my OLED TV and stuff like that. I'm pumped. I know that's silly, but I can't wait. I hope it's like legitimately good. Like that's all I like, you know, the same level we would talk about maybe not necessarily a Pixar movie, but like a good Disney animated movie or something like that. Like it doesn't necessarily have to make me cry or have this huge emotional impact.
Why do you cry?
Like but I just want it to be fun and funny. So, and it looks like it could potentially be that. Eric, before we wrap, anything else? There's some news that we didn't really cover. Like, I don't need to get into the conversation about, Tarantino talking about Marvel movies again or anything like that.
It's all been said and
Because
done.
yeah, we're not going to add anything like to
No.
it that hasn't been said already. So,
No.
like what you like.
Exactly.
It's just like-
It is weird with him though. Like we won't get into it, but it is fascinating. Specific, like I get it with Scorsese, like it's a generational thing, but Tarantino loves comic books. Like he's
Yeah.
always been a comic book guy, and like him
But
talking
maybe he
about
likes that being separate. I don't know.
maybe, or maybe just the way that the movies are made. I mean, he has talked about like sort of it being machinery and directors that
Sure.
make Marvel movies are hired guns, which that isn't not it isn't untrue.
Same with the movie star comment is like it's
Yeah.
not untrue either. It's just like,
but it's also
it's
funny
the
when
characters
Simu
that
Liu
are-
is like getting mad at
I agree. yeah.
Scorsese and Tarantino and saying that they're gatekeepers, and it's like yes and no, because specifically like Scorsese is a guy that's always championed world cinema and has always used his power and prowess to bring other movies that other than him wouldn't get that attention. So like it's a hard thing to kind of like it's a more complex issue than just
I
saying
agree with
somebody's
I love
one person or one thing.
I love Marvel movies. I love Scorsese movies. I love Tarantino movies. When it comes to Marvel stuff, I don't disagree with that movie star comment. Like, I just don't. It's the characters selling the stuff. Like, I think an actor helps, and you still need to be a good actor to succeed in performing those roles. But I had this conversation with my wife too, of just being like, sorry, I don't mean any offense, but you go, a lot of Marvel movies, even the biggest ones, I don't think anyone's even going, fucking new Chris Evans movies coming out next week, man. We gotta go. No, it depends.
I gotta
on what,
drop the Hemsworth
like,
hammer on this
yeah,
one.
like it's like, no, it depends on what the project is. It's like and I mean that for most movie stars now, or just actors.
Well, it's
There are
brand,
very,
right? Brand
yeah,
is
there's
the
very
thing.
few. I agree with the comment that there are very few pure movie stars left. Like, it's not very many people that can sell a movie on name alone or brand alone. Like, it's
Internationally too. Like
yeah.
you can't just look at it from North America. You have to look at it
No.
from a world point of view. The
Like,
only
Tom
guy
Cruise is one of those guys, right?
He's one of the
Will
last.
Smith was kind of one of those guys. I would even put who else would I put in there? Brad Pitt to an extent. Like
Tom Hanks, maybe to a lesser extent.
Yeah, now, but like even some of those guys, even lesser to a lesser extent.
But the
now,
the
right?
movie
But
star
like,
is changing. Where like
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about this probably a lot more with
the
Babylon.
movie star is Iron Man now. It's
Yeah,
not.
it's the name of the brand or the franchise that's been created. And
Yeah.
you have movie stars within that. Like it's always like Robert Downey Jr. kind of got that resurgence because of Iron Man, and then because
But
of
he's
him,
not selling a movie on
no
name
no no no
alone.
no no no. But you do have movie star like someone like
It
Robert
does
Redford.
benefit the people too, for sure.
Someone like Robert Redford coming into the Marvel franchise, even though it didn't work out the way that maybe a lot of people wanted to, but it's kind of like, oh, like Robert Redford's in a Marvel movie, so that adds
Absolutely.
some
But I think
pastiche
each
and
Marvel
cachet
movie
to it.
always had that. They always had the veteran actor who was a big name. Even Harrison Ford coming in to the MCU as Thunderbolt Ross is that, right? Like,
Yeah, but now it's like, okay, well, it's Captain America's movie, it's Thor's movie, it's the MCU's movie, or it's DC, it's Batman's movie. Like it's not the person that's in it. I don't even think
that's to any offense to any of those actors. You still have to be like, Simu Liu is great as Shang-Chi, and I'm sure he'll be great in Barbie and the other movies that he's in. But I don't necessarily think that even after Shang-Chi, you go, fuck man, new Simu Liu movie's coming out, we gotta go. It's like, no, you gotta see what the movie is. Even, and that goes to the biggest MCU stars, is like to the Hemsworths and the Chris Evans and the Robert Downey Jr.'s, is like, or else Doolittle would have been a huge hit, everyone. Like,
Yeah,
it's just, it's not.
Instead it did little.
And I don't think, like, I think it's just the way that these quotes are taken out of context, put on Twitter, put in a headline. Simu Liu sees the headline, he watches the clip, and like, I get it. You got to kind of defend your brand as well, and things like that. But it's all just so tedious and eye rolling, and just like, all right, everyone just relax. Like, it just like what you want to like. man. Like,
Well, especially when you're
it's not a
successful too, and
competition.
you're
Yeah, like
defending it. It's almost like it being like a sore winner in a weird way. It's like seemingly it was great and talented, and like he's wonderful in that movie, and I'm looking forward to more of his stuff.
some people just need to know you don't need to comment on everything.
But that's the
Both
thing, and
ways.
it's like you look at that, and it's kind of like, okay, man, like you are successful, you're talented, you're doing well, like you're going to have a great career. You don't need to be so defensive about all of this, you know. And then with this, like, I think also like journalists maybe need to back off of asking that question all
They
the time,
need
because
to.
you're just gonna get the same answer every time. And like I think Scorsese's opinion is
Well,
valid.
we all
in
keep
this.
talking about it though. That's
I
why
know,
people keep asking.
because it's clickbait, and it's material where it's like, okay, well, Scorsese, you know, next, I mean, it's going to happen again in February with the new Ant-Man and Wasp movie. It's going to happen again when Killers of the Flower Moon eventually gets released. It's, you know, every time we get a filmmaker,
when Apple buys Disney, and now it's all
yeah, Scorsese's in the MCU. It's just gonna be a complete clusterfuck, and we kind of just have to accept it. That some people like Marvel movies, some people don't,
Yeah.
and you can even say that
And that's
within
fine.
Marvel movies. You can like Marvel
My
movies, and you
wife's
can
home.
dislike
Everyone
some of
say
them.
hi to
So,
Nevis.
hey,
Eric and I are AMP boys on today's podcast. We're almost done. Yeah, the Apple buying Disney thing was a joke, but that ties into Bob Iger returning as CEO.
the
to
return of the
Disney.
Iger.
Bob Chapek just on a Sunday night, just ousted like it's an episode of Succession. Wild stuff. We talked about it a bit on air. We don't need to really go into it here. I just wanted to mention it because we don't know how this is going to affect anything, and I think it'll be more interesting to talk about when it starts affecting things, like if he does change anything again. And it seems like the safe choice to bring someone in after Chapek didn't work out, just bring in the guy that left right before him. And then there was that interesting article I sent you, Eric, that said like maybe he's coming back to sell Disney to Apple, because there's been those rumors for a while. And Iger, one of his bread and butter is acquisitions and stuff like that. He acquired Pixar, he acquired Lucasfilm, he acquired Marvel, but now they're saying maybe his big thing will be to sell Disney to another big company, which would be wild. But I also am very skeptical of it because with competitive rules and things like that.
Yeah, like are there certain regulations?
Regulations, like even right now with going back to video games, this all comes full circle, and then we'll end the episode. Microsoft tried to buy Activision Blizzard, which is the makers of Overwatch and Call of Duty and World of Warcraft and like all of these things, like two of the biggest video game companies trying to merge, right? And it's looking like they might try to block that because for unfair practices kind of thing, and that's going to be probably a long court battle over that. And with Disney already buying up those brands that we mentioned, even though those are kind of on a smaller scale other than 20th Century Fox, which was a lot bigger, I can't even fathom. The only way that would work, I guess, is because Apple could argue that, they just started their film business and they don't necessarily have anything in that realm. So they're not combining it with other shit from there. So I don't know. It would be absolutely wild, but it's going to be interesting to see what, like, if Iger changes anything or pivots, because like they pivoted to streaming heavily, and I'm curious now if they'll pivot back to theatrical more or how things will change. But
well, look how Strange World is done too, right? Like that seems to be like the focus of like it's not just one film that made the decision to bring Iger back,
and I'm sure that was greenlit during Iger's time, weirdly, and then and then happened during the end of Chapek's time, I guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to become sort of like almost the scapegoat, moving forward, where it's like that'll be the example, like in the way that in the early 80s in Disney, when it was kind of struggling, The Sword and the Stone was the film that everybody kind of, or The Black Cauldron were the movies that everybody looked at and said, like, because Disney was failing at that point, they were kind of down and out. And it wasn't until really the end of the 80s with The Great Mouse Detective, but more with the Little Mermaid that kind of brought them back into the financial fold. And but they have so much already that even though Strange World didn't do that well, it's not like they're going to be hurting for that long, because they have Avatar coming up. Black Panther's still doing very well. They have all of these other avenues to explore where, again, like
which can both make them and lose the money, right? Like
Yeah.
the theme park business, the streaming side, all that kind of stuff. So it is this weird thing where you wouldn't go, Disney's not struggling. What are you talking about? The MCU is the biggest thing in the world, all this kind of stuff.
But does the streaming hurt it though as well? Because we've talked about that, where
because they're spending so much money on it, and the return is, sure, retention, but you have to kind of
setting a precedent as well for having certain films be available on Disney Plus for free and not for a premium after a few months it's been released. I mean, we saw that a little bit with Lightyear and Strange World, and I mean, there's also controversy with the red states as well in terms of having representation in LGBTQ plus characters.
That could be affecting it too, but I mean,
but you have to look at, like, okay, I can watch Lightyear a couple months from now. I'm subscribed to Disney Plus. I don't have to go to the theater to see it, and especially if you're
45-day windows, it starts changing audiences' perspective on these things, right? Because like they start to come to expect that. And we mentioned it even in our Strange World review, which the movie is just okay. But then I go, as a family who has maybe 2-3 kids, and you got to go, with your partner, and like that becomes $100+ day, right? Going to see Strange World. But then if it's on Disney Plus, which you pay for what's it, like $12 a month now, like then you just get to watch it, right? So if they go, oh, that's going to be on Disney Plus in 45 days, and unless it's a must-see movie, where I don't think Lightyear or Strange World was pitched as like, you got to see this in theaters, even though
Lightyear was because of Toy Story
with the IMAX and stuff like that. But I think because of the confusion of going, well, this isn't a sequel to Toy Story, it's a spin-off. It's about
Where's Woody?
The toy that inspired all this
and
stuff.
Having Chris Evans instead of Tim Allen.
Yeah, I think all that stuff kind of affects people as going, well, I can wait. I don't know what this is. And like, so yeah, I don't know. You never think of Disney as struggling, but they don't necessarily need to be struggling for them to go a merger with someone, which I can't fathom it. Like Apple and Disney coming together both make sense just based on what their brands are like and what their brands are. But also seems like creating this monster that like,
it's a monolith already. And like, I mean, it's almost like we're living in Andor in a weird way, where the empire is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And in this case,
they're like purely evil. Like I love Apple and I love Disney, but like,
they're still corporations though. And you have to look at them as like, okay, you can't have a monopoly over an entire industry. It's the same way that we talk about other things in not just in film related stuff, but in everyday life. You have to have healthy competition, even with exhibitors. You can't, like, just having Cineplex is not healthy for the economy. It's not good for
There's no competition
patrons.
For independent theaters, all that kind of stuff. I agree with you. I think the only thing that I think it could go through if it happened, and this is all speculation, it's fun to speculate, because I think it would be insane if it happened. The Warner Brothers Discovery thing is like two absolutely gigantic companies coming together recently. And I think Apple's argument would just be like, well, we're not really, like, we have a streaming service and we make a little bit of content, but we're not a film studio or anything like that. So that's why we want this. So it's not like a film studio absorbing another film studio, which has already happened with 20th Century. But like, I don't know, man. I still think we're going to have like, I think the next 10 years will just be the year or the decade of mergers from everything, not just film and entertainment, but video games. We're already seeing it happen. And like, unfortunately, I think there's just going to be like a big four in every industry. And we've already seen it. Like if you look at other industries, like if you look at even the grocery industry and like supplies and shit like that. Yeah, they're coming full circle. We're wearing A&P sweatshirts. Is like, if you look at the companies that own everything that you buy in grocery stores, it's like 4 companies. It's like Pepsi, Coke, Unilever, and like some other company. I don't know, but like it's like 4 companies. And if you look at all their subsidiaries that sell you corn chips, but they also sell you fucking dishwasher pods, and they sell you everything, that it's just like you're gonna start to see that, I think, in other industries where there's just gonna be like 4 giant companies that own 80 different little things. And it's just like, I don't know, it's a dystopian kind of thing, but we've been predicting it for a long time, and I think it's just going to happen. I don't know, but so you gotta just bow down to our overlords and hope they give you the best entertainment until I die, and then it's not my problem anymore.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the studio system as well, like it started with like the big 6 and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
it's just it's a different. It's still the same, but it's different in that, like, you know, the technology is different, the world is different in how we consume media, and so with that, like, you could see still a divide between, you know, like I could see like Apple, even if the Disney thing doesn't happen, you know, like going with like other studios, like seeing like if Universal
they'll buy
and
one, I guarantee
Paramount or something wants to team up, and
Netflix will be bought by someone, which we've already predicted, and Apple will buy a film studio, and I think they'll try their hardest at Disney, and it'll be the most expensive to buy, probably.
Yeah.
But Apple could literally buy Disney with cash right now.
Oh god, those A24
Like-
movies are going to be Disney films.
Yeah. Did Apple buy A24,
or they
just
work with
collaborating
them, because there are
But that was
films
the
that
rumor
are,
that they were going to buy them too, right?
and there are movies that are exclusively available on Apple. So something like The Tragedy of Macbeth or On the Rocks, right?
But A24 was rumored to be selling, but what they were asking was too much, right? I think that was the article that came out. Like, they value themselves a little bit more than maybe others do.
And they probably
but
do,
like,
but at the same time, it's like maybe if they win one more like Oscar for Best Picture or something like
if
that down the
Everything
line,
Everywhere wins or something,
maybe then they'll
to sell right away. Right?
Yeah.
I do think Netflix will be sold eventually, and I have a weird feeling that this Disney and Apple thing is true, and that in the next 5 years that shit will happen. People will fight it, but I have a weird
You can't
feeling
stop
that it's
what's
true.
coming.
Yeah, basically. All right, let's wrap there. I called this random news, but mostly Disney. I'm excited for the Super Mario Brothers movie. I'm excited for award season. This was a fun episode. We might not have a review out this week just based on, you know, how things are netting out, but I think we have a ton of reviews for stuff that basically are out these last couple weeks that either we reviewed at TIFF or have reviewed recently. Eric, do you have anything off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, my Rogers slate this week is White Noise, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, and The Inspection, which
Right.
we didn't review any of those. I mean,
Sure.
White Noise didn't play,
So we could
at
review any
TIFF.
of those, yeah.
Yeah, and then you know, Pinocchio's out in theaters now, but it won't be available on Netflix until the following Friday, so we could have a review for that next week. Babylon is still under embargo, so we can't have a review up as of yet, but we will as soon as we know when that embargo is, and we'll have things good to go there. And then, you know, Violent Night we'll catch
We'll
up
probably
with,
both see, and then we'll probably have a review out next week or something like
Yeah.
that. It'll be interesting. Eric and I are also going to New York next week, so again,
there's
throws
the
a wrench
menu.
in-
I mean, the menu's out. We
Yes.
haven't reviewed that, and that seems to be doing quite well theatrically
Yeah,
right now.
we'll review a few things on Thursday when we chat about some other stuff. So we'll have a couple reviews out this week, at least probably one or two of them.
I'm gonna watch EO tonight. So,
Oh, are you?
oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
I got to,
nice.
because I'm attending the virtual press conference, so I need to watch it.
I thought you would.
I got to.
I have a bunch of screeners I gotta watch, but you guys can check out our reviews right now of Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, Bones and All, Strange World, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Causeway, Tales of the Jedi, Armageddon Time, After Sun, The Good Nurse, Black Adam. Then there's stuff like the Fablemans and
Glass Onion.
Glass Onion, so which we all reviewed at TIFF. So anything that's been coming out recently, you could probably just search Untitled movie reviews and then the movie, and you'll find it. And then we'll review a few more this week. Next week we'll be in New York, so the episodes might drop at weird times or something like that. Maybe we'll record one in the hotel room. Who the hell knows what we're going to do while we're there?
Hotel recording.
We'll just get room service and record a podcast.
You better not get Brussels sprouts.
Do you think we're staying at the same place? If we do, I might get Brussels sprouts.
Oh my God. No, Matt. No.
One-stop shop for everything. Head over to Letterboxd, which is Untitled_movies, and you can follow me still on Twitter for the time being.
Surprisingly.
Who knows for how long, at Matt Rohrbeck and all those other social medias too.
And I'm Eric Martin. You can find more of my video reviews on rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on the social medias at EM6211. I quickly just want to mention that Albert Pune, director Albert Pune, passed away recently. And he was known as a B-movie director and unfairly put in a category next to people like Ed Wood, and made a lot of kind of neon drenched, usually kind of neo-noir movies. And I had the chance to revisit one I hadn't seen in a very long time, Radioactive Dreams, which was a delight. Justin Decloux, who's a filmmaker, had a bunch of screenings on his Twitch page, but he also wrote a book about the director that I highly recommend if you're interested in sort of genre films on low budgets from the 1980s into the early 2000s, and specifically focusing on Albert Pune's career and where he went as a director. He was kind of known as a 4 or 5 day shooter, where he'd make a movie in 4 to 5 days and then move on to the next film. It's called Radioactive Dreams, The Cinema of Albert Pune by Justin Decloux. So I highly recommend checking that out, and even checking out some of Pune's movies. He directed a number of full moon films that I remember fondly as a kid, like Doll Man with Brick Bardo, played by Tim Thomerson, who's in a lot of Pune movies, and Arcade, which again, not the greatest place to start for that career, but there's a lot of interesting stuff there, and always worth revisiting filmmakers who didn't get the respect that they deserved when they were making movies. So definitely check that out.
Cool. Until next time.
The Bob Iger has returned.
Somehow Iger has returned.